Of debate on the President's State of
Order,
the National Address.
order, honorable members. Order. Will you please settle down? I will ask the Secretary to read the order of the day.
Resumption of debate on the President's State of the National Address.
I now invite to the podium the Honorable Chief Whip of the Council.
Thank you, House Chair. To the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Metoko Didiza, to the Chairperson of the National Council of Province, Mayor William Tsipani, His Excellency, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, His Excellency, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, the President of SALGA and the entire delegation from SALGA, distinguished delegates, both permanent and special delegates, to the honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, Madume. Honorable House Chair, Richard Morin, who is a veteran political commentator of the Washington Post, an accomplished researcher of the Pew Research Center, which is one of the largest non-partisan link on social issues, public opinion, and democratic trends, is credited for having invested the term whistlers or whistling. The meaning of whistlers is concisely defined by Professor Witten from Massey University in the article titled "The Whistle's Politics," the new pitch of an old narrative as meaning, I quote, an overt intentional speech or act that is designed with intent to allow two plausible interpretations with the sole intention of peddling information. Lies and half-truths in such a way that the audience is unaware of the existence of the second and coded interpretation. Professor Jennifer Saul from the University of Waterloo, in a seminar titled "Political Manipulation and Philosophy of Language," also cautions us to be aware that those who resort to whistling often covertly and intentionally seek to divert attention or distort the true state of affairs through witch hunt distortion that is intended to pursue narrow political gains. Honorable President, through you, House Chair, the history of literal and metaphorical whistling gives us crucial insight into some of the speeches that have been made on these podiums since yesterday. They were, to a larger degree, less substantive, less meaningful, but deliberate manipulation of facts to divert attention from the real issues that the President has presented to the nation last week. Honorable House Chair, we stand firmly with the President and the people of our great nation, and we will not be deterred, we will not be silenced, and indeed, we will not be bullied. As once affirmed by the supreme Pan-Africanist and intellectual nationalist revolutionary poet, Amilcar Cabral, I quote, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people, tell no lies, expose lies whenever they are told, mask no difficulties, mistakes and failures, and claim no easy victories," unquote. Honorable President, the African National Congress has always identified the democratic state in all its configurations, and especially Parliament, as an elected tribune of the people, as a contested terrain of struggle in the battle of ideas for the victory of the National Democratic Revolution. This makes a compelling case for this debate to assure our people, among other things, how Parliament is going to reposition itself to oversight and ensure that there is successful implementation of the strategic priorities that the President has outlined. Indeed, this is especially so against the backdrop of a sustained falsehood and distortion by some sections of political parties in this august House that the GNU is not a popular choice but an elite pact. Honorable House Chair, Honorable President, these whistlers among us have been sustained despite the hard evidence that none but our people united in diversity have gone in their great numbers to vote for the political parties of their choice. Honorable President, we stand before this august House not just to engage in debate, but to reaffirm to our people our unwavering commitment to the fundamental visions that we outline of the Freedom Charter. Indeed, we wholeheartedly agree with you, President, that South Africa belongs to all those who live in it, that the people shall govern, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of its people. Honorable President, through your House Chair, it is important that we reassure our people that contrary to false claims and distortions, the strategic priorities of the GNU as outlined by the President indeed mirrors what the Freedom Charter has outlined. The 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter this year makes, Honorable House Chair, a compelling case to reflect on the extent to which our government has pushed back the frontiers of apartheid colonial legacy of unequal power relations defined by race, class, and gender. We do this, Honorable President, to demonstrate that the vision of the Freedom Charter, which has inspired the preamble of the Constitution of our country as the supreme law, is not just a collection of revolutionary sounding phrases, but a living document and a call to action for the victory of the National Democratic Revolution. The Freedom Charter has and continues to inspire the widest sections of the people of South Africa across all races, class, and gender. Therefore, House Chair, at the core of the architecture of our democracy, as articulated in the Freedom Charter, is the centrality of our people, especially the working class and the poor. This has inspired heroic struggle by the masses of our people across the length and breadth of our people, the rural masses, the youth, the women, and the working class in demand of the transfer of power from the white minority to the masses of our people. Honorable House Chair, as Jeremy Cronin reminds us in one of his seminal articles, The Vision of the Freedom Charter, on democracy, he raises three fundamental elements. The first one is the representative democracy, where elected officials act on behalf of the people. The second one is constitutional democracy, where governance is bound by the rule of law and the transformative Bill of Rights. The third one is popular democracy, where ordinary citizens are active participants in shaping their future. Honorable House Chair, these elements are not in competition, but a complementary and mutually reinforcing to anchor the vision of the democratic South Africa. It is important that we also outline the fact that this participatory mechanism raises three fundamental issues from Comrade Cronin: taking Parliament to the people, community policing forum, and ward committees. And he's of the view that these are not mere formalities that can be measured by the ticking of the box, but concrete expressions of the people in real action to construct future. The culture of participatory democracy, Honorable President, which has become the defining feature of post-apartheid colonial polity in South Africa, has its roots in the form of struggle waged by our people under the leadership of the ANC way back before 1994 democratic breakthrough. It is through this culture that transparency and accountability as the core features of democratic culture have been entrenched in the political traditions and culture of the ANC. Honorable House Chair, in pursuit of the Freedom Charter and the transformative vision of the Constitution, Parliament has always adopted a mission and a vision of an activist parliament that is responsive to the needs of the citizens for better quality of our life. It is our view, Honorable House Chair, that the supreme test of an activist parliament that is responsive to the needs of the citizens is not endless policy debates and hecklings amongst ourselves as elected representatives of the people, but the political will and the capacity to push back the frontiers of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Honorable House Chair, Parliament that does not deliver tangible transformation to improve the lives of the citizens risks becoming irrelevant to the masses it serves and meeting the wrath of the rebellion of the poor. It was for this reason that the first democratic parliament initiated a bold review of the impact of the post-1994 legislation through high-level panel team led by the former President Kgalema Motlanthe. This review was not an academic exercise, but a revolutionary audit of whether our laws were accelerating transformation or entrenching status quo. Honorable House Chair, the assessment of this panel was buttressed by key pillars, amongst them the unemployment and economic transformation, the equitable distribution of wealth, the land reform, restitution, and social cohesion. Indeed, this initiative will forever remain in the annals of history as an indelible demonstration of the people and also the people's movement that is self-critical in pursuit of the aspiration of the masses of our people. The finding and recommendation of this panel, House Chair, was indeed processed by Parliament through its select committees and portfolio committees. House Chair, the sixth democratic parliament marked the coming of age of our parliament as a critical institution of democracy as it coincided with the 30th anniversary of our constitutional democracy. And building on these lessons, achievements, and setback of the preceding period, this parliament has accomplished a myriad of qualitative strides in pursuit of a better life for all, with a targeted focus on the elimination of triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Critical among these strides are the robust oversight and repositioning of various state-owned entities. And on the legislative front, we witnessed significant improvement in the capacity and quality of this parliament to scrutinize bills presented before it by the National Executive. And indeed, this is more illustrated by less number of bills that were returned by the President to Parliament. The sixth Parliament has also passed groundbreaking pieces of transformative legislations that were related to yesterday, amongst them National Health Insurance Act, the BELA Act, the Appropriation Act, and also the Public Procurement Act. Honorable House Chair, because of enhanced, robust parliamentary oversight in the last administration, many strides have been made to improve government services to our people. Parliament House Chairs effectively overseen the successful and seamless intervention in the executive in the areas of disaster areas hit provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and also Northwest. Honorable President, it is for this reason that we support the strategic priorities of the GNU and your commitment to accelerate economic transformation through Transformation Fund, assisting municipalities, and also to address the challenges of infrastructure and basic services to our communities. Honorable House Chair and President, according to the diagnostic report of the National Planning Commission, among the critical challenges of governance is the persistence of fragmented planning, poor policy coordination, and resource allocations among the three spheres of government since 1994. And therefore, Honorable President, we acknowledge and welcome your policy intervention as part of strengthening the capacity of local government through the district development model and also specialized technical support, as is the case with eThekwini Metropolitan Fund. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Ndlela.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Members of Parliament, fellow South Africans. We rise today on behalf of Mkhonto weSizwe Party, the official opposition in Parliament, to respond to Mr. Ramaphosa's 2025 failed state of the nothingness address, an address that regrettably felt less like a reflection of our nation state and more like a maiden speech of someone who's just been newly appointed to a job. Laden with recycled promises, hollow rhetoric, and dressed in the usual fanfare that has become the hallmark of these kind of annual events. The SONA platform is not meant to be a ceremonial spectacle or a stage for lofty promises. It should be a moment of accountability where the nation hears an honest assessment of past commitments and concrete plans for the future. Instead, we witnessed yet another episode of political theatrics, a fashion show camouflaged with empty, hot air rhetoric. Mr. Ramaphosa's speech was filled with promises eerily similar to those made in 2024, 2023, and even earlier. Let us not be fooled by his eloquence. South Africans deserve more, Mr. President, than promises. They deserve results. We have listened to these commitments before, and yet the realities on the ground tell a different story. A story of betrayal, neglect, and failure. Now let's look at the military sacrifices. We mourn the loss of 14 South African soldiers, with this number still rising. These young men and women died not to defend our sovereignty, but to protect the government's economic interests in foreign lands. The least you could have done was to equip them better, yet you led your incompetent, less caring finance minister to keep defunding the military budget. Their blood is in the hands of the government that prioritizes profits over people. A failed state. Unemployment and poverty. The president speaks of economic growth and job creation, but the facts expose the truth. Whilst the population grows at the rate of 1.3 million people a year, the South Africa's unemployment rate remains the highest globally, sitting at 42%, with young people's unemployment exceeding 60%. Millions of our people, particularly the youth, are stuck in a cycle of poverty with no clear path out. The so-called inclusive growth has excluded majority, particularly black working class. Again, it's a failed state. Crime and gender-based violence. The president mentions crime reduction efforts, but South Africans live daily in fear. Violent crime rates have surged, with over 27,000 murders recorded last year alone. Women and children continue to face the brunt of this violence. Gender-based violence remains a national crisis, yet the government response is fragmented and unfunded. Our police are under-resourced, demoralized, and often complicit in the same crimes they are meant to prevent. Let alone the fact that, by the way, the 10111 contact center number doesn't work. Again, a failed state. Landless and homelessness, land reform has been short of nothing of a disaster under this administration. The Expropriation Act, recently signed into law, is nothing but a rebranded apartheid relic. a repackaging of the Expropriation Act of 1975. It does nothing to address historical land issues. It is the same apartheid wine in a different bottle. The MK Party will not endorse half-baked legislation. We will push for an amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution to enable genuine land expropriation without compensation, to return the land to our people. And again, we know it's a failed state. Diluted national health insurance. The national health insurance signed into law is a betrayal to the needs of our people. It will not collapse private medical aids, but will instead make them richer. This government remains committed to protecting white capital interests, always pleasing whiteness at the expense of our people. Our hospitals continue to fall apart. Clinics lack basic supplies. Mothers give birth in corridors. Children die due to preventable diseases. President, this is a failed state. Education crisis. Our schools have become drug dens rather than centers of learning. Infrastructure is crumbling. Children still learn under trees, pit toilets, overcrowded classrooms. The Bella Act, now in the hands of the DA in consultation with the AfriForum, will not transform our education system because of the racist DA who will then never implement that good for blacks. It will be another law gathering dust while our children suffer. Again, this is a failed state. In conclusion, the MK Party stands firm. We will not be complicit in endorsing laws, policies that betray the people. We will fight relentlessly for real land reform, genuine economic transformation, and for the dignity of the restoration of the crumbling health of our education systems. We will champion justice for poor, marginalized, and those left behind. This is not just our responsibility as the official opposition. It is our revolutionary duty, born from the struggles of our forebearers, to hold this government accountable. Mr. President, sir, you lead a failed state. Kwaza mkhonto kwaza.
Order, honourable members. The next speaker is the Honourable Minister of Public Works. Order, honourable member. Order, honourable members. The Honourable Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure.
Honourable Chairperson, Mr. President, honourable members. This afternoon we reflect on the state of our nation, which is currently one that is under construction. But words alone are not enough, and Mr. President, time is not on our side. For 30 years, many promises have been made with little or no results. When the Democratic Alliance joined the Government of National Unity 7 months ago, I committed to turning South Africa into a construction site, to drive economic growth and job creation, and to use public assets for public good. What I found in the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure was an organization crippled by neglect, inefficiency, and overtaken by corruption. Morale was low, and its core mandate to build infrastructure, create jobs, and ensure public assets serve the people was failing. But just in 7 months, that story is now beginning to change. We are building a department with a bold vision, with staff that are motivated, and where big ideas are embraced. One of my most important decisions has been to use public assets for public good. For far too long, state-owned properties have stood vacant, attracting crime and decay. In a major policy shift, we have released public properties for request for proposals, inviting both the public and the private sectors to submit their ideas. Soon we will be converting eyesores, such as the barracks in eThekwini, into a mixed-use development where the first new skyscraper will be built in Durban in the last 20 years. In our first round of proposals, we have released 31 properties for redevelopment at a value of 1.4 billion rand. Mr. President, this is going to generate up to 10 billion rand in private sector investment, create 165,000 jobs, and generate close to 200 million rand in rental income for the South African government. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU. In Tshwane, we have handed over a state-owned land to community projects in Mamelodi after years of delay, which demonstrates our commitment to community development. We are taking decisive action against corruption and mismanagement. In just 7 months, we have launched investigations into the failed Telkom Towers project, which cost more than R1 billion, and the 800 million rand IDT oxygen tender. Mr. President and honourable members, I am taking a zero-tolerance approach to corruption and will hold officials and politicians to account for their role in these scandals. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU. Honourable members, through Infrastructure South Africa, we have launched the first of its kind project preparation fund worth 180 million rand to prepare and package infrastructure projects across government. This first bid window has been completely oversubscribed and is a testament to the big reforms we have introduced in just 7 months. In another first, we have launched the Adopt a Municipality program, where we will pilot an infrastructure partnership program with 4 local municipalities to maximize infrastructure spending and efficiency. And soon we hope to roll this program out across the country. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU. We have started to conduct a skills audit to ensure that we have the expertise to execute on our mission.
Honourable Minister, will you just take a seat, please? There's an honourable member who wants to be recognized. Why do you rise, honourable member?
Honourable Speaker, I rise on the point of order in terms of Joint Rule 14P. This is the third time the Honourable Minister made references to what he calls the GNU.
Honourable member, take your seat.
There is no such thing as
Honourable
GNU
member,
in
take
this
your
government.
seat.
This is a
That's a
coalition
point for
between
debate. Take
his
your seat,
party
please.
and the DA.
That's a point for debate. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
We have started to conduct a skills audit to ensure that we have the expertise to execute on our mission. And we have declared war on the construction mafia, which has held infrastructure projects hostage for far too long. The Durban Declaration, signed between the Department, the SAPS and the National Treasury, is a landmark agreement to dismantle these syndicates one by one. And reports of construction stoppages are already decreasing. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU. Honourable members, we are securing public property to prevent land invasion, crime and theft. Eviction orders have already been obtained, including at the Castle of Good Hope, ensuring public assets serve society instead of criminal elements, because no one person has the right to claim public land and buildings as their own. Despite our progress, there are some members in this House who don't want the department to succeed. While some members in this House seek out paid-for journalists and attempt to spread fake news through AI voice notes and falsified WhatsApps, including Action South Africa and the EFF, but we will not be distracted. We will not be bullied, and we will not back down. We will not be pressurized or persuaded by false reports, political collusion, or those being investigated for wrongdoing. The people of South Africa deserve a government that delivers, and that is what we will focus on. Over the next year, we will attract 100 billion rand in private sector infrastructure investment, making Infrastructure South Africa the hub of all major projects. This past week, the National Treasury has issued new PPP regulations, which we welcome. We will also launch a special projects unit to fast-track infrastructure projects and revive failed initiatives across the country. And we will redevelop small harbours, such as Hout Bay, into tourism and economic hub, bringing the next V&A waterfront, which is set, Mr. President, to attract tens of billions of rands of investment and create tens of thousands of new jobs. And we will finalise reforms to the expanded public works program to ensure it leads to permanent employment and skills development after being hijacked and abused by politicians and political parties for too long. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU. In just 7 months, we have achieved what others have failed to accomplish in decades. The department is no longer a department of empty slogans, it is a center of delivery. We are no longer exist to advance personal interests, but the interests of South Africans that want our country to work and who want to get to work. Across the country, thousands of public servants in our department are working diligently to build a better South Africa. This is why, Mr. President and honourable members, the DA will play its role and its part in the GNU to drive the tough economic reforms in public works and infrastructure which will drive economic growth and job creation. This is what we have achieved in just a short 7 months. Imagine what we will achieve in a full 5-year term. This is what the DA has been delivering in the GNU. And the GNU depends on the DA to keep delivering to South Africans, and South Africans know that. This is why we will continue to turn South Africa into a construction site, one that drives economic reforms, growth and opportunity for all South Africans. This is why we will continue to build South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order, honourable members. The next speaker is the Honourable Dagmo.
Chair, Mr. President, Deputy President, honourable members. President, on Thursday at the City Hall, you made us proud. Proud to be South African, proud to be African, and proud to be part of a movement and a country that strives for a better world. Your words reminded us of our resilience as a nation and the strength we have, especially when we are united in our diversity. The immediate dangers of a changed global context and our own challenges we face reminded me of what ANC President Oliver Tambo said in 1977. Comrades, he said, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. At that stage, you will realize that it is more difficult to keep the power than to wage a liberation war. People will be expecting a lot of services from you. Be prepared to learn from other people's revolutions. Learn from the enemy also. The enemy is not necessarily doing everything wrong, but at the same time, avoid the enemy's mistakes. We drew strength, Mr. President, from your reference to the Freedom Charter. The wealth of this country shall be shared. That vision is now enshrined in our Constitution, a Constitution which commits our country to redress in favor of those historically disadvantaged who suffered unfair discrimination. The GNU Statement of Intent itself embraces redress. Speaker, Chair, President Ramaphosa delivered the ANC's January the 8th speech in Khayelitsha on the 11th, and he said, the false notion that the character of the ANC and its strategic objective of the NDR have now been redefined by a single tactic of forming a broadly inclusive GNU is a distortion of the realities our movement faced, and this should be dismissed out of hand. Asinomona, asinanzondo, siyayidumisa i-ANC. President, you signed the Bella Bill into law, enabling access and equity to basic education, compulsory grade R. The myth that the Bella Bill is teen Afrikaans, that is a liegstorie. You've exposed that. The Expropriation Act. I have here, Mr. President, a speech that Helen Zille made in 2018, where she argues that the case for nil compensation regarding land in next to Mitchell's Plain, and she says, and I want to quote, in terms of all these considerations, it is quite conceivable that a reasonable court could find that the just and equitable amount payable would be zero. Now, with the help of Honourable McPherson, she goes around and creates a smokescreen and seeks common cause with the likes of AfriForum, Solidarity, Donald Trump, to project this legislation as about land grabs. You passed the Public Procurement Act, the National Health Insurance Act, and yes, Mr. President, there will be differences. We do not need megaphone diplomacy. We need dialogue, finding practical solutions, trust and respect. Chair, but I detect something now. Ek voel hier iets in die huis. I call it GNU envy. You weet, jaloezie. Umona. Did the MKP, Mr. President, really think that our leadership could govern with them when they demanded that we must first remove you, our president? This party on the left predicts the imminent death of the GNU. The implosion of the MKP has begun. The Twitter war amongst unelected leaders is going on. Die regering,
Honorable Dakmo, will you please take your seat?
will you please watch my time here?
No,
Mr. Jong,
it's fine. Your time is okay. Order, honorable members. Yes, honorable member. Honorable Skosana. Order, honorable members.
Honorable member.
Yes, please
Thank you,
proceed.
Chair. Is the member prepared to take a question?
Honorable Dagmo,
No,
are
you are
prepared to
not
take a
elected.
question?
Sit
No,
down.
he's not prepared to take a question. Order, honorable members. Please proceed.
die regering van nasionale eenheid is wat ons land nou nodig het. Speaker, did the EFF really think that they are seen to be a trusted party? Its leader is central to internal conflict within the EFF. Honorable Malema, you have actually forgotten what Kosas taught you, each one, teach one. You have forgotten that. President, you have called on us to focus on fixing local government. Building a capable and ethical state is critical to growing our economy at 3%, creating jobs and lowering the cost of living. We've seen the intervention in eThekwini. Our people want implementation. The vehicle is a district development model. Thank you for appointing the district champions. Each of the 52 districts across our country have natural endowments, comparative and competitive advantages. An example is the initiative to build on the Knysna Investment Summit, attended by our Deputy President, and convene a Garden Route District Summit. The founder of this initiative wants the district champion there, he wants the Premier there, the Deputy President, and he also wants you there. There are black farmers in the Southern Cape already trying to secure the Chinese market for honeybush tea. But in this province, we have the Human Settlement Grant underspent by 250 million rand. 222 million rand returned because this DA provincial government refuses to upgrade informal settlements. This is skanda. The mayor of Hessequa was recorded on the tape telling residents of Melkfontein to lie about the income to qualify. Alan Winde does nothing. John Steenhuisen, I'm going to give the recording to you to expose this liar in your ranks. But we also know, and I'm not sure if you're aware, that some within the ranks of the GNU are giving oxygen to those that want to secede. And this fuels separate and racist logic. When I think of those lies, I remember the words of Bob Marley, when he says, you can fool some people sometimes, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. Asinamona,
Thank you, honorable member. Your time is expired.
ANC.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Mawatwe.
Greetings to the President and Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, officials, EFF members of Parliament, the people of South Africa, grand forces of this protest movement that is taking the fight to the picket lines this year. House Chair, year in, year out, Mr. Ramaphosa comes here and make promises without accounting for the promises he made the previous year. It's as if he's permanently on a reset button. And the sad thing is, every time he opens his mouth, more and more people become statistics of unemployment, of poverty, of rape and murder. Mr. Ramaphosa, why don't you rather keep quiet and go look after your ankole in Palapala farm? Because you are the elephant in the room. There's no hope for our youth. Men and women are lingering in the streets of South Africa in absolute poverty and despair. We've listened to the submissions by the members of the former liberation movement and their allies, the right-wing new liberal forces who are waging a war against Bela, the NHI, expropriation of land without compensation, and all progressive and transformative legislation. We will meet on the picket lines, in the streets, and everywhere our people need us to fight for service delivery, to fight against injustices, fight against corruption and maladministration, and to restore the dignity of a black child. We will never retreat. Commander-in-Chief, when President Cyril Ramaphosa said in his first and second State of Nation addresses in 2018 and 2019 that they had a plan for critical areas of investment that would support structural transformation, growth, and job creation, what exactly was he talking about? Because since then, we've seen nothing but suffering, deepening unemployment, and rising cost of living. Mr. Ramaphosa, when you started in 2018 and said, Tumamina, the price of bread was 12 rand. Today is 22 rand. The price of a liter of petrol was 15 rands. Today is 25 rands. The price of 2.5 milli meal was 21 rand 84 cents. Today is 39 rand 19 cents. Our people cannot afford to eat. In 2018, 8.9 million people were unemployed. Today, 11.4 million people are without jobs. Their futures are stolen by this government's incompetence. When you said your government planned to create 275,000 jobs a year in 2019, we knew then that young people, the unemployed, the dejected masses of our people were doomed forever. How can you aim to create 275 jobs a year when more than 12 million people are unemployed today? It would take 25 years to reduce unemployment to 5 million and a further 43 years to eradicate unemployment completely. You won't be here president in the next 25 years, let alone 43 years, because nature would have resolved our problems. As we speak, there are no jobs. There is no plan to create jobs. There is no link between the government budget and job creation. There's no link between South African Reserve Bank monetary policy and job creation. Your government does not want to create jobs for our people. It just refuses to create jobs for our people. In 2018, 83 municipalities received a qualified audit. Today, 85 municipalities have failed to meet financial accountability standards. There's a complete failure to stabilize municipalities. Mr. Ramaphosa, in 2018, more than 172,000 learners passed matric, and many could be accommodated in institutions of higher learning. Today, more than 135,000 students who achieved a bachelor's pass will not have space at the university due to limited availability. The dreams of young people have been shattered. Their futures are in limbo because your government has no vision, no direction, and no will to change their lives. The reality is that South Africa is in the middle of a deep economic crisis, a concoction of disastrous economic policies, a lack of coordination, and relentless budget cuts in education, in health, policing, food security, and all essential and critical areas of service delivery. This is made worse by the collapse of municipalities, which is the complete opposite of your growth and renewal program that you promised us in 2018. The reality is that ever since you took office 7 years ago, our economy has not grown by more than 2%. We are talking about an average growth rate of 0.6% since 2018. Only people who approach policy and politics like a game of murabaraba or China will produce such a disastrous economic outcome, and that's you, Mr. Ramaphosa. You told us that the revitalization of 10 out of 16 industrial parks in places such as Botshabelo, Putadichaba, Garankuwa, East Tebe, Komani, and Seshego was complete in 2020. But go to Botshabelo today or Putadichaba and tell us if anything was ever revitalized. House Chair, allow me to turn to the SOEs. The EFF was the only political party that correctly characterized the deliberate sabotage and collapse of SOEs as a privatization project. We are not surprised that today, one of the most strategic entities, Transnet, which used to move over 200 million tons of cargo and annum, used to employ more than 55,000 people and reported over 6,000 billion rands in profit, is now being called inefficient. Today, we are told that the private sector must come and rescue Transnet. Eskom's coal fleet was allowed to collapse, and we were subjected to more than a decade of electricity blackouts because people wanted to profit from electricity generation. They wanted their friends and cronies, the independent power producers, to milk Eskom. You even came here, Mr. Ramaphosa, and claimed that there has not been load shedding in 300 days when we experienced load shedding just 2 weeks ago. We're told that SAA was making billions in losses and was supposed to be sold for 51 rands. Yet today, it is making a profit, operating without any governmental support and barely surviving. We're calling for the expansion of SAA mandate and operating routes that support our economic development with allies and trade partners in Asia and the Global South. There is no plan to rebuild and stabilize Dinel, and there is no intention to rebuild South Africa's defense capabilities. Mr. Ramaphosa, you were boasting about 375,000 billion rands that will be spent by SOEs on infrastructure over the next 3 years. But where will they spend this money when you are privatizing everything? Even the delivery of water is privatized through the so-called 23 billion rands infrastructure fund. Mr. Ramaphosa, you told us that your neoliberal right-wing coalition government will spend 940 billion rands in the next 3 years. That's 313 billion rands a year for a country that has a housing backlog of more than 3 million houses, more than 400,000 kilometers of gravel roads that needs to be tarred, more than 300,000 beds short at institutions of higher learning. What is 940 billion rands? We haven't even touched on the collapse of water and sanitation infrastructure in municipalities, the collapse of telecommunication infrastructure due to crime and vandalism, and the general shortage of water. Mr. Ramaphosa, let me help you give your government proper direction. We need to expropriate land without compensation. We need a state bank, and we need it urgently. We had banks here in Parliament last week, and it is clear that they are not interested in the reindustrialization of the South African economy. So the state must take the lead. We need to finalize the nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank. We have no time to waste on this. We need to establish a grant for all unemployed graduates and all unemployed persons as a matter of agency. This, Mr. President, will do two things. It will stimulate the much-needed demand in the economy, and it will give unemployed people some means of survival. President, we must, as a matter of agency, engage our allies and partners in BRICS Plus to source strategic knowledge to build massive railway, health, military, and energy infrastructure projects. This should include build, operate, transfer models, but we must fund it with our own money and access their skills and technology. As a matter of agency, Mr. President, we must allocate funds to the South African Post Office and give it a clear directive to fix and reopen all its branches. We know that a criminal syndicate is selling off support properties to their friends and cronies. Mr. Ramaphosa, the time is now to take bold and decisive steps to reindustrialize South Africa. We need to turn our country into a manufacturing hub and create jobs for our people. South Africa's economy must not be designed to please imperialist forces and the so-called markets at the expense of the lives of our people. We need to put our people and jobs first. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Stofile. Thank you, Honourable Members. Honourable Members, you may now take your seats.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to the President of the Republic, the Deputy President, the Speaker of National Assembly, the chair of the NCOP, and leadership general that is present in this. The State of the Nation, it helps us as local government to reflect on what it was tabled by the President on Thursday last week. To us, it means different things. It means a moment in which we celebrate at long last that the President of the Republic, in his reflection on the state of the nation, reflect on the key fundamental questions that confront the nation, such as South Africa. One of those issues that he raised, it was the funding model of the local government system in South Africa. The second part, it was the manner in which the 1998 white paper on local government was constructed and the manner the developments that have taken place in our country had to be relooked and redesigned. And for this basis, local government, as we see it, as a center of economic activities, as a center in which move forward the needle of development in making sure that there is a success in our communities. One thing that we need to present in this debate on the state of the nation is that President will request few things to be looked at by yourself and your team. One of them is to relook on the EPWP and what it means, this issue of EPWP, in the general economy in which we are operating. The second thing that we wish President to look at is the state of rural roads. And we call and request the President probably to lift the issue of rural roads. I've heard the Minister of Kokda speaking about this issue of traditional leaders. Part of supporting traditional leaders is to support the rural development. And rural development, roads is a key fundamental question that it must be looked at. And in developing roads, you then open opportunities of economy, because through road, it creates centers in which economic activities can partake and play a role. It is our belief that it is important to relook on this issue of road differently and approach it differently. Part of the suggestion that the local government wish to present in this debate, probably President can lead the debate about, or the program about paving the road. Because the gravel roads today, President, with the global warming and the challenges, cannot resist the current environment in which we are operating. And therefore, it requires a different thinking insofar as investing on that. South African local government and the entire municipal system in South Africa, 44 districts throughout the country, we are committed to partner and work with you with regard to this. It is indeed, we hope and believe that all of us, we accept that and appreciate Minister Professor Ramkhupa. I don't know where is he. For a moment, President, when we faced a dark cloud as local government, when the House approved the taking away of electricity regulation and distribution, our engagement showed to be a person that is willing to listen. And he listened to us about the importance of reviewing at this section insofar as definition is concerned. And thank you very much for that, to have leaders that listen when they are told about challenges that we are facing. So as Minister Stella Ndabeni, we are in agreement that economic development cannot prosper if the economy at township is not forecasted. And therefore, small business enterprises in our communities need to be lifted. It is important for us to look at that. And I believe as we drive forward and making change into communities, we need to consider this, because that's where people are and that's where people live. And they expect all of us in sitting in Parliament and Council to look into their challenges and deal with the challenges decisively. The other issue, President, to us as local government, we want to present here. You raise it in your closing of the 6th Parliament. Few issues that resonate very well with us. And we hosted the Deputy President just last 2 weeks. He resuscitated the issues that you have raised to us. One of the issues that you raised with us as local government practitioners is about your unhappiness to see our towns, townships be dirty. And then you ask and challenge us that what is it that can we do in making sure that these towns and townships are changed so that the investment can be attracted into this township. And the Deputy President, in his conversation with us, he highlighted this issue. We agreed. And we want to call and request that the Cabinet, through your leadership, accept to launch a massive cleaning campaign in the country as a whole, in which, in that cleaning campaign, we must then inject the issues pertaining to competition and give awards to best performing municipalities in the categories of metro, district, local, and smaller municipalities. It is our belief that through economic participation and collaborations of forces, including those that are responsible to government, if we combine our resources, our energies, we can change the tide. We can change the tide. The other issue, President, that we wish to implore on you to lead us on it, as much as there is a skill challenge in local government, but there is also invisible hand in local government. There is a moment in which local government is hamstrung to develop and prosper. How do we cut that invisible hand? But it's visible. We can deal with it. We know what is happening in local government. It requires working together in dealing with that challenge. It is important for us to make sure that we deal with that issue. President, we wish to also to implore on the leadership here today to relook the definition. The definition, it says that on the law that you have signed, you reduce the 132 to 139 volts on electricity managed and retitulated by municipalities. You reduce it to 11. Whereas the white paper and all related policies that you have adopted, it says the key fundamental instrument for local government to make revenue is through electricity and water. Now, if you reduce, then it then means municipalities must solely dependent to grants of national government in the economy that is not growing. It is important for us to relook at this. It is important for us to deal with that. And thank you very much, at least Professor Ramkhupa, in dealing with this. We are committed to deal with this and find solution to it. The other issue, President, that we wish to highlight before this, as we move towards reviewal of the 1998 white paper, we request it should not be a middle-class discussions. It should be encompass of all those that are involved benefiting in local government. Remember, the law that you have signed in South Africa, it says, more in particular, the Municipal Structures Act, it says municipality is three-legged pot. Is the administration, is the council, is the community. Now, in the debate about the type of municipal system that we want in South Africa, it is important to ignite that third leg, to play an active role, including the way in which, President, we are not using the institutions of higher learning. In your 44 districts in South Africa, each of these districts, they've got 1 or 2 centers of higher education. How do we use them and how do we partner with them and work with them and change the economic outlook of our country? And it is indeed our belief as South African local government, informed by President Mandela when he launched us in 1996, that the function and the role of local government is to represent the interest of the communities, is to represent the interest of the local government practitioners, is to drive and push back the difficulties that our people are facing. It is our belief that these issues had to be taken at the center stage of our debate in taking them forward, including the issues of speedily and welcome the offer that has been given by the Minister of Finance in convening an Indaba for the first time in our history, having a debate about how do we debate the manner in which the local government is funded. It's something that we can appreciate this government and the government under your leadership has made. The other issue, President, on this issue of 12.7%, I don't hear any member talking about. Here's the problem. The NERSA approved 12.7% on electricity. The Water Board have approved or intend to approve 15 to 16% increase. This is the 30%. Who's going to pay this 30% is the household. It's not a municipality, it's a household. Because if you apply business model, is that you give us the 15 or 12%, This 12% and 15%, according to your packaging of municipal administration, you transfer this cost to household. And household income today is shrinking every day.
Honourable Member,
it's an issue that we
your
need to look at.
time is
Thank you
now
very much.
expired. Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Farmer. Order, Honourable Members.
Achtbare spreker, achtbare voorzitter, achtbare president, achtbare lede, mede-Suid-Afrikaners en spesifiek konings en stamhoofde van ons eerste nasie, die Khoi Nisan, wees gegroet in die onfeilbare naam van Jesus Christus. Die patriotiese alliansie verwelkom die stand van die nasie toespraak en neem kennis van die sentiment waarmee die president dit aan ons oorgedra het. Dit kom voor asof die president eerlik was met ons en die nasie en dat die uitdagings wat deur die president gelys was eerlik en opreg is. Ons dankie daarvoor, meneer die president. Hierdie paar minute tot my beskikking wil ek graag poog om 'n saak te argumenteer wat u nie direk aangespreek het nie. Die visbedryf. Meneer die president, u stelling, herlewing van klein hawens in samewerking met buitelandse vennote om ekonomiese vooruitsigte vir kusgemeenskappe te bevorder, word deelhartig deur ons vissergemeenskappe verwelkom. Ons spreek ons hoop uit dat die implementering hiervan vinniger sal plaasvind as wat die norm tans is. Die waarhede egter is dat die visbedryf is 'n biljoen-dollar bedryf, maar ons kinders moet in die visgat skrap vir iets om te eet. Kleinskaalse vissers was effektiewelik sonder meningsvolle kwotas sedert 1998. Die tydsgelewe dui daarop dat die departement geen investering gedoen het om hierdie gevalle aan te spreek nie. In terme van visbronne wat besig is om in duie te stort, is die stilte van die departement oorverdowend. Die toestand van bedreigde visbronne soos Weskuskreef onder andere het tot so 'n mate verswak dat NGO's as ook kommersiële entiteite die verkoop van die spesies gestop het. Die perlemoenbedryf wat hoofsaaklik aan die suidkus voorkom, is in 'n totale chaos. En al wat die vissermanne vra is vir 'n geleentheid om na geluister te word. Dit is tragies dat hierdie departement nie met 'n oop deur beleid bedryf word nie. Die jarelange ondervinding van die visserman, opgebou vanuit herhaaldelike trotsering van die elemente op die seewater, word nie na waarde geag en toegelaat om insette te gee nie. E-posse of kommunikasie met die departement word nie eens op reageer nie. In my gesprekke met vissers wys Imani en Arendse van Mamre my dat die wegskuif van kreef om deur die groot maatskappye gevang te word, was dit werkskepping wat weggeneem was van kleinskaalse vissers. Meneer Aaron Conradi van Vredenburg noem die volgende: die huidige visvangregte wat die departement aan kleinskaalse vissers gegee was, bring R9.000 per jaar in vir 'n visserman met 'n gemiddelde familiegrootte van 5 persone. Aldus meneer Conradi was groot maatskappye deur die departement gevra om vissers by te staan, maar dit het nooit gerealiseer nie. Elmondo Polse noem dat die visbedryf na 30 jaar van demokrasie nog nie getransformeer is nie. Vissers kan nie lewe dit wat aan die kleinskaalse vissers gegee word nie. Ons stem elke keer maar word nie na omgesien nie. Aldus meneer Polse. Groot maatskappye word uitgesorteer, maar die visserman word misgekyk. Meneer die president, die Suid-Afrikaanse visbedryf is besig om op 'n ramp af te stuur. Groot besighede probeer om soveel as moontlik in te oes voor die bedryf ineenstort. Die visserman word forceer om te stroop vir 'n lewe. Die lewende visbronne sal dit nie oorleef nie. Dit wil voorkom of ministers net die bedryf aan die gang probeer hou tot hul termyn verby is. Hierdie bedryf is die derde grootste bydraer tot die bruto binnelandse produk in die Wes-Kaapse ekonomie. Tog is van ons gruwelikste gevalle van armoede in hierdie bedryf. The Marine Living Resources Act is outdated and is heavily skewed towards big business, while it does nothing to protect the resource, nor does it offer any assistance in the fight against poverty, inequality, and job creation. This act needs to be reviewed as a matter of urgency. Ten opsigte van bereising, meneer die president, sit ons vandag met 'n kriteria van R3,500, 'n kriteria wat nog bepaal was deur minister Joe Slovo in sy tyd en tot op hede nog nie verander is nie.
Thank you, Honourable Farmer. Unfortunately, your time has expired.
Thank you, Chair.
Dankie, achtbare Farmer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The House now recognizes the Minister of Health and invites him to the podium to take the debate further. Honourable Minister.
Honourable House Chair, His Excellency the President and Excellency Deputy President, honourable members. Mr. President, in your State of the Nation address last week, you confronted critics and doomsayers by saying something that they believe will never be said. And if I may quote you, you said this year we'll proceed with the preparatory work for the establishment of NHI. Regardless of this, some doomsayers still persist in their denial. Yesterday, during this debate, Mr. Honourable MJ Cuthbert said that he's happy that NHI is no longer in the MDDP, it's off the table. Sorry, sir, it is there, and it ought to be there, and it's going to continue being there. I've listened to people talking about NHI without even having read the Act, and they start by distorting the definition of NHI. NHI, or universal health coverage, is not a new system of health care, as some of you are prone of saying. It is not a system which people implement because they are rich, but NHI is a health care financing system that covers everybody regardless of their socio-economic status. That's what it means, and it has got two dimensions. The first one is that all people receive quality health care. And all means all. Regardless of how poor you are, it means all. And the second dimension is that when you receive that quality health care, you must not suffer financial hardship or what the World Health Organization called catastrophic health care expenditure. Mr. President, this second dimension was brought about because the World Health Organization realized that there are many people around the world who are not classified as poor, but they become poor because somebody got sick in the house and they have got to seek health care. That is the concept of catastrophic health care expenditure. This type of people are counted in billions, not millions around the world. And in South Africa, we have got many such people. So NHI is about money. It's about how money is distributed to the whole population. It's about how much each citizen has got for the provision of their healthcare system. That's why the former Director General of the World Organization, Dr. Margaret Chang from Hong Kong, summarized it. He said NHI is an equalizer between the rich and the poor, close quotes. Now, that's exactly why we've got a problem in South Africa. The moment you mention the rich going to be in the same place as the poor, people start getting stomach aches immediately. That is why when you say Bella Egg, people get stomach aches. When you say expropriation, people start getting stomach aches. When you say NHI, they get stomach aches. Because these are all transformative programs about the poor. Yesterday, I listened carefully to my colleague in the GNU, Honorable Minister Hlabisa. Minister Hlabisa, you said you propose a more incremental approach to implement NHI. You are spot on. We agree with you 100%, because what you put as a new proposal is actually Section 57(1)(b) of the NHI Act itself, and I want to quote it verbatim. Open quotes: national health insurance must be gradually phased in using a programmatic approach based on financial resource availability, close quote. If there are no financial resources in the country, you can't implement. And the Act it says so. So it's not something that is new. This is not a coincidence, Minister, that the Act is drafted like that. It's because there's no other way of implementing NHI except gradually. There is no country anywhere in the world that did it in any other way, because it's impossible. It's just impossible, because it's not a once-off event. It's a gradual event that gets implemented over many years. In South Africa, you have got medical aids, which many of you believe is perfect. And I will tell you, medical aids have been there for half a century. And during that half a century, it has been gradually introduced. That's exactly what NHI is going to do. Not that it will take half a century too. The second thing Minister Hlabisa said was that you propose prioritizing strengthening the existing healthcare system. We agree with you again 100%. And actually the President said it. He said our most immediate priority is to strengthen the healthcare system, improve quality of care, and he said a vital part of this modernization improvement is maintaining of existing health facilities and construction of new hospitals, close quotes. Now, I just want to say something. Strengthening the healthcare system and implementing NHI are not mutually exclusive. One doesn't have to follow the other, for the simple reason that all of them are lifelong processes. They are unending. So you can't say we must start with one, because it will never come to an end, because they are not once-off processes. Due to unavailability of time, I'm not going to give you a list of the hospitals that the President is talking about. You will hear that during the budget speech, and you realize that they are placed very strategic for NHI. Now, the belief that countries implement NHI because they are rich, they've got a big tax base, is not true. There is not a single country in the world that has got NHI, which can be described in those words. The UK started in 1945 and implemented in 1948 specifically because of the crisis of the Second World War. The British were poor, they were unemployed, and they were sick because of what Hitler did to them. And they wanted to rebuild their economy. They were told that no one can build an economy with sick people, and that's why they launched it. Same as Canada. Thailand, when they launched it in 2002, is because of the Asian financial crisis of 1977. So is Indonesia. They did it exactly because of the same reason. And I can go on and on and on to show all the countries that has got NHI. Now, yesterday, the chief whip of the DA, Honorable Machalakis, was very angry and said he's tired of hearing from me. You know, his level of anger was so much that I felt pity for him. Ik had mal raak. Maar soos 'n broer, ek wil jou raad gee. Jy moet asielkind gaan sien. Voor raadpleeg, want NHI is no hierso. Dat gaan nergens. It is here to stay, Mr. Machalakis.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Motsoaledi. The next person at the podium. Order, honourable members. We now call to the podium the Honourable Letlape.
House Chair, Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President. as long as we remain South Africans, we will remain divided, covered with copious amounts of makeup. Remove the makeup and nothing has changed. We're the only country that calls itself free, where we choose to go by our slave name. Rhodesia became Zimbabwe. Southwest Africa became Namibia. We remain South Africa. And I can tell you all, South Africa has not changed. If you're black like me, you're a second-rate citizen in South Africa. Until that changes, Mr. President, we're going nowhere. And I hope for leadership from you to give us a name. 3 quick things, Mr. President. GBV is a sport in this country driven by culture and traditions. Unless we change them, more of us will lose our children. We plead with you, Mr. President. Let's have the discussion in our communities to change our values around that issue. As the minister will tell you in some of his presentations, our problem is not finance in health. We're spending enough of the GDP. What you should insist on, Mr. President, is until you realign what we spend on the GDP, not a cent more. NHI is another medical aid. The medical aid is under the authority of the minister. Let him change that. Our problem is not money. Lastly, on municipalities, our problem is not money. Our problem is cadre deployment. Our problem is leadership. See what Tshwane has done without an extra cent because of a mayor that says, I'm not a mayor of a party, I'm a mayor of the people of Tshwane. Let's put South African first and not money first, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honourable Tlape. Taking the debate forward, we now recognize the Honourable Lekhwasi.
Modulasetulo wa ntlo, Mopresidente wa rona wa naga, Motlatsa Mopresidente, ditilo ka go latelana ga tsone, ba gaetsho ke a le dumedisa. House Chairperson, in the SONA debate, our point of departure must be the preamble of our Constitution, wherein Parliament, through its elected representatives, adopted a supreme law of the Republic, which is to build a united democratic South Africa, which is able to take its rightful space as a sovereign state in the family of nations. And I want to underline the sovereign state in the family of nations. Our self-determination is a right politically and economically, and we shall protect it and conduct our relations and trade with other countries only based on peace and friendship. South Africa's development intrinsically depends on inclusive economic development and job creation. This means implementing an industrial strategy and policies that ensure the reindustrialization of the country through beneficiation, local industrialization, and through economic development. We are encouraged by your commitment, Honorable President, to finalize a modernized and comprehensive industrial policy that drives economic growth. However, implementation depends on removing economic constraints caused by unreliable electricity and water supply, as well as logistical constraints. This means our point of departure for inclusive economic development and job creation is infrastructure development. We also have to ensure that regulated prices for utilities and logistics are reviewed to ensure that our economy becomes cost competitive for investment and that vestiges of structural inflation are removed from the economy to attract investment in competitive global market. Chairperson, there's a noise that...
Honourable members, we are aware of the challenges with the sound. There are technicians trying to deal with it. If I can ask you to just be patient, and if we can ask Honourable Lekhwasi to please continue with the delivery.
President, we need to chip in the cost of doing business in the country to enable...
On a point of order, House Chair.
Honourable Lekhwasi, please take your seat. Yes, ma'am. What's your point of order?
Thank you, House Chair. I think she might just want to answer that phone call. It might be Helen Zeller telling her which direction her speech must go.
That's not a point of order. Please take your seat, Honourable Member.
Thank you very
Honourable
much.
Afasi, please continue.
Thank you very much, House Chair. We will not waste our time. The South African people are listening to this SONA for a purpose and what we are here for. Mr. President, you have accurately articulated our developmental priorities as expressed in the medium-term development plan. In the main, our priority is job creation and inclusive economic growth through beneficiation and a manufacturing-driven industrial process. The backbone of economic growth pathways lies in intensifying the manufacturing output and boosting exporting growth. Beneficiation by local industries will increase value addition of our natural resources, which remains our valuable competitive advantage. This requires proper planning and efficient inputs in the economy. Further, we must reposition our state-owned enterprises as engines of rapid inclusive economic development. As SOEs operate in 30% of the economy, which is no small part of the economy, there is a need to recognize the progress made in stabilizing the SOEs in the sixth administration, as many of them in the minerals and transport sector have recovered and are going concerns. We need to drive those on an investment path in infrastructural development while we ensure that other critical SOEs recover fully from state capture. Others such as PRASA and ESCOM are recovering well with much more work to be done. Transnet requires shareholder support to ensure that logistic constraints are removed from the economy. Inland provinces rely on logistics to get exports to ports and receive imports. As Howard Zinn famously said, and I quote, "The problem is not that we aim too high and we miss it, but we aim too low and we reach it." We must aim high and transform our financial system to support not just the wealthy few, but all South African, promoting development that lifts everyone. The issue of steel industry requires our attention and is an industry which we must safeguard and protect local jobs and grow the economy. It is necessary for both local construction and manufacturing, especially in the automotive sector. There is a necessity to harness a vicious cycle of investment, jobs, and economic growth through a modest target of at least 3% growth in the short term. However, given the correct conditions and sufficient investment in infrastructure and industrial development, our government is poised to surpass this modest target. We have already laid the base for in the sixth administration. We have a robust financial sector, and as former President Thabo Mbeki rightfully observed, we must work together to create a South Africa where everyone has access to opportunities and resources that enable them to thrive. By strategically allocating financial surpluses towards infrastructure projects, we can stimulate economic growth and address the disparities that exist in our communities. This is not consumption investment, but investment in productive sectors, increasing our gross capital formation and strengthening the balance sheet of our country. There is a need for unblocking the unutilized financial capital outside the state productivity for economic development in terms of infrastructure-led industrialization and increase DFI capital by mobilizing, guiding, pooling public and private across institutions. The financial sector must be transformed to invest in productive sectors of the economy and not merely ensure increase in household debt. There is a need to increase productive development through industrialization as well as diversifying the ownership and control patterns of our economy to eradicate the economic exclusion which we had in the past. What type of capitalism or free market economics leaves the bulk of the population outside the market due to limited purchasing power based on color? The dominance of financialization does not translate to growth of the productive sector, such as manufacturing, construction, and agro-processing, for example. Honorable President, too often, financial institutions have perpetuated a cycle of exclusion rather than fostering inclusivity. In terms of the FinScope 2020 survey, 80% of SMMEs are banked. However, of those that are banked, 30% of SMMEs have business bank without the remainder using owner's personal account as a dual account for both business and personal use. Even with the use of personal account for business purposes, 18% of micro enterprises, which are informal, of course, are excluded from the formal banking sector. We have successfully implemented 6 industrial master plans, these being sugar, poultry, automotive, shoe manufacturing, as well as clothing and textile. These master plans have worked and need to be deepened, and new ones need to be implemented in other manufacturing sectors. Logistics bottlenecks need to be resolved so that manufacturing sector can efficiently access the domestic and export markets. We must also become food self-sufficient and reduce imports. Food security is part of the fight against poverty, inequality, unemployment, and historic economic exclusions. Honorable House Chair, the massive job creation and economic growth path we want to advance requires fundamental structural changes in the architecture of our economic system. We must diversify our international trade and open up new markets. The Africa Free Continental Trade Agreements, BRICS, G20, and the EU has presented to us opportunities, and those opportunities are waiting to be harnessed. Honorable House Chair, as the ANC, we remain resolute in our march to ensure a better life for all and inclusive economic transformation. We will not be distracted by naysayers and by serial opportunists who bark at the glory and our historical achievements simply to claim easy victories. We will certainly engage in enhanced and systemic oversight of progress, as there need to be qualitative and impactful spending in all our programs and projects. As Honorable Supra has said, Honorable President,
Thank you very much indeed, Honorable Lekwase. Honorable members, before we continue, I'd just like to remind all members, please, to ensure that your cell phones are not kept too close to the microphone and speaker system. Even if your microphone is off, the ringing cell phones can cause some interference. So please just ensure that you place your cell phones a little way away from the speaker, especially when it is ringing. Thank you very much. I now recognize the Honorable Reverend Kenneth Meshwe.
House Chairperson, Honorable President, Honorable Members, at the top of the list of priorities mentioned by President Ramaphosa during his SONA speech last week was economic growth. Unemployment in this country is way too high. For almost 30 years, we have seen unemployed people protesting, marching, and toing in the streets, yet jobs remain elusive. The most painful thing for me to watch, Mr. President, is when our health workers, particularly medical doctors, toying with their stethoscopes hanging around their necks, protesting because they are demanding jobs that they studied for and are qualified for. South Africa has an abundance of talented, capable, unemployed doctors and nurses who are desperate for work. The ACDP would like to see our economy grow and absorb unemployed professionals who many of them are working as car guards because they don't have jobs. Since US President Donald Trump signed an executive order canceling foreign aid to South Africa, there has been much speculation and questions as to whether or not AGOA is included. May I remind honorable members that AGOA is aimed at expanding American-African trade and investment by stimulating economic growth and assisting sub-Saharan Africa's integration into global economy. AGOA has and continues to have a positive impact on South Africa's economy, with our country being the leading African exporter of AGOA goods into the US market. If South Africa loses AGOA, we will lose our duty-free access to the US market, which would result in the introduction of tariffs. The consequence of this would be a reduction in the competitiveness of the South African automotive, agricultural, and footwear sectors in the US economy. Another negative consequence would be the loss of investments and market confidence. South Africa has lost its preferential investment destination status on the continent, and the loss of AGOA would contribute to a reduction of market confidence at a time when our economy is struggling to grow at acceptable levels and that can cause it to create much needed jobs. The ACDP supports government's plan to send a delegation to the US to meet with the new US administration in an effort to iron out their differences and improve relations. We need AGOA and duty-free access into that market for AGOA goods to help stimulate our economic growth. Lastly, Mr. Chairperson, I want to appeal to members of this House to show maturity in bilaterals with the US and others, and to overcome the temptation of playing a tit-for-tat with them, because that would not bring us any economic benefit. I also want to appeal to the ANC and the EFF to discard their plans to rename Santon Drive to Leila Khalid Drive. Leila Khalid is not a South African. She is not known by the majority of our people, and she has done nothing to benefit our country. The ACDP does not want to see the US consulate closed permanently due to an unprofitable name change that will not contribute a time to our economy. Neither does the ACDP want to see employees of the US consulate in Johannesburg lose their jobs because of an unwise, unpopular, and foolish decision. We believe we need more jobs and not less. We don't want anybody to lose their job. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Meshwe. Honourable members, I'm noting the volume in the House rising. If I can ask you please to just observe the rule not to converse aloud, not to drown out the speaker. Honourable Swart, what is your point of order? On what are you rising?
Thank you, House Chair. I rise on Rule 34 of the joint rules. And whilst the leader of the ACDP was speaking, the Honourable Reddy stood up and took a photograph. And I would remind the House that that is infringement of Rule 34I, and I'd request you to call the Honourable Member to order. Thank you.
Yes, honourable members, please, there is a rule that says that we are not to be taking photographs, not to be rising either in the House. When it's not your turn to rise, please delete the photograph that you've taken, and let's respect the joint rules of Parliament. A reminder that it is indeed the joint rules that have precedence today. With that, honourable members, we now welcome to the podium the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honourable Governor.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honourable Chairperson of the NCOP, the Honourable President of our country, the Deputy President, the Honourable Leader of the IFP, the Honourable V.F. Slabisa, all Honourable Members of this House. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party and all peace-loving South Africans, we would like to express our sincere condolences to the families and colleagues of our fallen soldiers since they were fulfilling our international relations mandate. As IFP, we support the view that abrupt withdrawal of the SANDF would not be in the best interest of the continent. We call on all parties in this conflict to embrace the current diplomatic efforts that are aimed at finding a peaceful resolution. Honourable House Chair, we welcome the undertaking made by the President of our country to address youth unemployment. As IFP, we welcome that the regulations of the Public Procurement Act, which will be fast-tracked to ensure that businesses owned by young people will receive equitable opportunities in government contracts. We hope that this procurement will be followed by a clear draft policy document and clear legislative provisions and guidelines in existing procurement legislative framework. We hope that those in charge of managing state procurement processes will seek to show commitment to the youth of this country. As IFP, we believe that to rebuild South Africa, we need to invest in our youth. Honorable House Chair, we welcome all the declarations in relation to gender-based violence, which the Honorable President has considered a pandemic. However, the medium-term budget policy statement, which the Honorable President oversees, remains silent on funding of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. As IFP, we believe that this must be addressed as it is a national concern, and we further call for the financing of the women's rights agenda. Honorable President, in your State of the Nation address, you rightfully acknowledged the severe dysfunction in many municipalities, citing poor service delivery, decaying infrastructure, and financial mismanagement. Your promise to ring-fence utilities for water and electricity services could not come at a more critical time. We appreciate your follow-up to the commitment you made during the opening of Parliament address last year of visiting eThekwini. However, there is still no improvement in service delivery. Residents across the city are still faced with constant water outages with no resolution in sight. The Metro continues to be unresponsive to calls made by residents for water services, especially when water leaks are reported, resulting in millions of liters of water flowing down our streets, and yet we say we are a water-scarce country. We welcome the 940 billion rand investment in infrastructure over 3 years. It is encouraging to see the importance placed on public-private partnerships to fund these projects. We therefore call for stringent performance matrix, monitoring, accountability, and transparency over this investment. We support the review of the funding model for municipalities that the Honorable Slabisa is leading in the reforms of the 1998 White Paper for having established the White Paper Political Oversight Committee, which seeks to make local government work better. As IFP, we caution that state capacity should not merely be viewed as an abstract concept that we refer to when appropriate. It should be recognized as the underlying and challenges that relate to policy. We call upon Parliament consultation, joint planning, and programming by the three spheres of government, integration and synergy for improved policy implementation outcomes. We support multilateralism and promoting global cooperation and stability. Honorable House Chair, allow me to reiterate the closing remarks made by the President of the IFP when he said, and I quote, "The IFP will be counted amongst the nation builders, not the breakers, the doers, and not just the dreamers, the worker and not the armchair critics." Honorable House Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Governor. Honourable members, the opportunity now passes to the Honourable Deputy Minister of Police to take the podium and take the discussion further. Thank you. Honourable Boshielo.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair, Honourable President of our country, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, Comrade Deputy President of our country, and honourable members. Honourable President, every year you give us a theme, and utswale rena parallel. Ritaka tumamina, we follow. Watakati ntwalo, we follow. Now all of us don't want to be bullied. Keep it up, you are doing a good job. It's really. The people of South Africa deserve to feel safe and be safe. This fundamental right is enshrined in our National Development Plan Vision 2030, which emphasizes the critical need to strengthen our fight against crime and corruption while building safer communities. We cannot afford to delay. The time to act is now. We stand at a pivotal moment in our nation's journey, a moment that calls for decisive action and unwavering commitment to the safety and security of all South Africans. The marching orders set forth by President Ramaphosa during SONA are not just directives. They are a clarion call for us to unite and act swiftly to confront the challenges of crime and corruption that threaten our communities. Honorable Chairperson, through Operation Chanela, the South African Police Services continue to take bold and decisive approach in dealing with crime. These crime-fighting activities include tracking operations, roadblocks, high-visibility patrols, stop and search, as well as tracing of wanted suspects. Just last week, Mr. President, from Monday, 3 February to the 9th February 2025, 2,777 wanted suspects for serious crimes such as murder, attempted murder, rape, business and house robbery were arrested. 209 suspects were arrested for murder. 111 suspects arrested for attempted murder, 247 for rape, 99 illegal possession of firearms, 1,285 illegal foreign nationals, 625 for drinking and driving, 1,321 rounds of ammunition, and 65 hijacked and stolen vehicles were recovered. Honorable Chairperson, we are continuing to valor imigodi wa comrade Minister Mantashe, and to date, we have confiscated nearly 6 million in cash, along with substantial quantities of illegal minerals and uncut diamond valued at 32 million. Between April and November 2024, 79 firearms, 59 vehicles, and 20 large mining machines were confiscated, in the process reducing criminal operations at mining sites. We are also strengthening border security. Over 611,910 security actions were conducted to curb illegal activities at borders, leading to the arrest of 6,713 individuals for crimes such as illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and possession of illegal firearms. Furthermore, we have recorded substantial success against extortion, with 745 cases reported between October 15, 2024 and January 31, 2025. In KwaZulu-Natal, 2 suspected hitmen were arrested after they allegedly shot and killed a 40-year-old ward councillor and injured his 42-year-old wife in Tsomdumbi. Another joint intelligence-driven operation led to the arrest of 55 years of suspected drug trafficker with main drug tablets of 9 million in command. The Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, have adopted a multi-agency task team approach to tackle the scourge of corruption. A total number of 1,452 suspects, of which 1,409 natural persons and 43 juristic persons were secured before the various courts in the country. Of these arrests, 451 represented 32%. Yes, 32% are South Africans, whereas 958 represents foreign nationals. So, President, we have a problem of illegal immigrants coming to our country to commit crime. It's because they don't have any fingerprints on our system and they are never even arrested. In Stilfontein, 1,924 people or illegal immigrants, which were Zamazamas, were arrested, and out of it, only 21 were South Africans. So it is a real problem that we need to do that. We have also have safer city corporations with 6 of our major cities, and we are already working with them and have what we call a force multiplier, bringing our resources together and making sure that everything is going fine. And Mr. President, after all, we are enjoined by the Freedom Charter, which declared in Clipton in 1955 that there shall be houses, security, and comfort in an environment of peace. We are also working with our community policing forums, private securities, business against crime, and we are ensuring that we are fighting the crime. Comrade President, we are not going to allow to co-govern with criminals. We are going to deal with them, and they must run, because we are going to deal with them decisively. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Boshielo. Deputy Minister. Honourable members, I would like to just remind you of the lessons that were learnt yesterday when we took our break about how long it takes to leave and return to the precinct. We are about to again suspend proceedings for the day for a period of 30 minutes. I therefore ask you to go and take a comfort break now that the opportunity presents itself. Bells will be rung to alert members when the business resumes, but I do ask you to be back in the chamber by 20 minutes past 4. Thank you, honourable members. Business is now suspended.
the EFF and MKP has great consequences for us as a nation.
President, we must be ready to cheer the class of 2025. There will be 800,000 learners writing the grade 12 examination. 600,000 are social grant beneficiaries. 81% of the class of 2025 will make up those who are successful. 300,000 of social grant beneficiaries will automatically qualify for NSFAS bursaries, nearly 50%. This indicates that the investment government is making in the lives of the poor and vulnerable children is yielding positive impacts in breaking intergenerational poverty. In the midterm development plan, provision is made for best practice in terms of the Bella Act to give grade R learners world-class foundational education. The plan also provides for government to look after children for the first 1,000 days of their lives.
Let me turn to serious business. Mr. President, we welcome your commitment to the founding principles contained in the Government of National Unity and the Statement of Intent to reduce poverty, reduce the cost of living, and address the indignity in which many of our people live. However, we must acknowledge that regardless of all the noise, both locally and internationally, South Africa has constitutional and moral obligations to transform society, to narrow inequality, and create a nation in which all citizens have a stake. Section 27 of our Constitution guarantees the right to access to basic needs, including health care, food, water, and social security. It also places the onus on the state to take reasonable steps to ensure that these rights are met. And already we have got the Grootboom Constitutional Court judgment to this effect.
It is these features that we must remind ourselves of in times such as this one as we confront massive geopolitical threats. Mr. President, your injunction for us not to be bullied is an important one. I want to urge, Mr. President, there are times such as this one we must remind ourselves to remain united as a nation. When others at this moment, when another murder takes place both in the farm and in the streets, we must remain united. When others say to all of us that the demand for justice, as espoused in our Constitution, is put on the table, we must remain united. When ultimately, Mr. President, there are those who seek narrow interests and find voices from elsewhere, we must remain united. And ultimately, Mr. President, when the hopes of one become the fears of another race, Mr. President, let us build one South Africa, for we must remain united. Ultimately, Mr. President, I listened with great caution to your speech. It was filled with much promise. But, Mr. President, I think we need to use Thursday as an opportunity to move from state of the nation to state of performance. There's a biblical injunction that says this: that a house built on sand cannot stand. Our foundations are in trouble, Mr. President. In all reality, when you look at the MTSF that was tabled, 25% indicates the achievements of the last MTSF. Here, Mr. President, we can't pass at 30%. We need a better performance on the next MTSF. Mr. President, our economy has been growing at 1%. and social spending now consume 60%. I want to urge that our debt is at 5.2 trillion rand, 74% of GDP. If we are going to show that we are serious, our foundations in building must remain strong.
The Labour Department enforcing labour laws on all companies, whether it is in the hospitality, construction, farming industries, would significantly reduce unemployment. The PIC must fund manufacturing-driven initiatives. There can never be economic growth and job creation in a consumerism-driven economy. There are factories all around the country, Mr. President. They are lying idle. There are people who are eager to work, and there's a market for the goods. Why are we importing goods that we can produce in South Africa? Mr. President, our communities cannot be defined by alcohol and drug abuse. We have young kids drinking their future away because they've got nothing to do. There must be a heavy investment in sports and arts infrastructure in the townships and villages. We cannot accept that a black child is more likely to be exposed to drugs and alcohol than schools and sports facilities in the townships. The alcohol culture is stealing our future, and the government must act. Enyobeni and countless incidents of alcohol underage drinking are great examples of this. The government must take unpopular decisions and save the future of this country rather than being popular in a country with no future. There must be harsh penalties on anything that kills our children, who are the future of the country. It is an embarrassment that our kids died of food poisoning, yet foreign spaza shop owners were just requested to register. Mr. President, spazas selling fake and expired foods will not be solved by registration. The solution lies in strict enforcement of immigration laws and mass employment of environmental health practitioners.
And those are some of the highlights from day one of the State of the Nation address, a debate rather that started just yesterday. And today is a continuation of that debate. And of course, the reason why we're here is because proceedings have been briefly suspended, and we expect that the House will resume at 4:20.
Yes, Tsepo, House will resume in just 5 minutes for the second round of the second day of the debate on the State of the Nation address. And you've heard it from your leaders there on our screens, expressing their views on the President's State of the Nation address. Some going as far as giving us some biblical quotations, like the leader of Build One South Africa, Mr. Musi Maimane, quoting there that a house built on sand cannot stand. But I think that is true. You know, it's like throwing stones while you stay in a glass house.
Of course.
And also urging the President to ensure that the nation remains united, preaching unity. You know, it's just going on about how this country should be united, because if we are united, then we'll be able to confront the challenges that are we're currently facing.
And of course, we had Mr. Vuyo Zungula, and he's the president of the ATM, and he reiterated the need to invest in sports, arts and culture infrastructure in townships, especially with the, call it a pandemic of underage drinking that we see prevalent in our communities. You had the issue of Enyobeni that happened a year or two ago, where youngsters died as a result of being intoxicated.
And of course, Tsepo, and also you're right to correct that he's expressed his concern regarding this alcohol culture, which is visible for everyone to see. I mean, if you go to the township right now and you see what is happening there, especially with alcohol and young people, then it is very concerning. But I know that, like we said, we'll be continuing, we'll be resuming in the next 2 minutes with the second round.
And we expect, of course, that issues such as water and sanitation, diplomatic relations with the US, education, especially the NSFAS funding for students as well, for institutions of higher learning, issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, issues of the National Development Plan, those are issues that we can expect that members will raise to the President, and he has to reply tomorrow, the 13th of February, at 2 p.m.
And yes, and the issue that you've just highlighted now, Tsepo, I've raised them when I had an opportunity to speak to the Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons Living with Disabilities in the Presidency, especially relating to the issue of NSFAS and student funding, because as we speak, there are still some students at some universities who do not have accommodation, who have not been registered yet. Some as a result of financial exclusion, some as a result of the shortfall on the funding provided by NSFAS. I mean, we spoke about how expensive student accommodation is vis-a-vis the 45,000 rands that NSFAS provide. But as you had said, the President will be responding tomorrow too, so I cannot be responding for you.
Yes. And of course, you can stay here on Parliament TV, DSTV channel 408. And of course, subscribe on all our platforms at Parliament of RSA. And if you want more information on Parliament's work, please visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. We are expecting that the House will resume and we'll cross over there. From us here at the studio, goodbye.
And from Tembingo Singoma.
The House Chairperson.
Thank you, honourable members. Please be seated. Order, honourable members. I now recognise to proceed with this debate the Honourable the Premier of the province of Limpopo.
Is it on? Is it on?
Can we please assist with the microphone there at the podium?
Oh, no. Is it fine? Okay. House Chair, Mr. President, Honorable Deputy President, esteemed members of this joint sitting, and fellow South Africans. Today, I rise with both gratitude and determination as we reflect on the state of our nation. First, we honor the brave soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Amongst them, 8 were from Limpopo. We extend our deepest condolences to their families and pledge to uphold the values they fought for: stability, security, and better Africa for all. As I stand before you, Mr. President, I'm reminded of a marula tree whose fruit is now in season across our province. Its branches bend downwards, inviting us to reach up and partake in its nourishment, which has health benefits. This is the essence of leadership. We must extend opportunities to those below while ensuring that everyone benefits from our shared resources, and I mean everyone. Limpopo is poised to be at the heart of South Africa's global engagement, hosting key G20 meetings on agriculture, financial architect, the digital economy, and health. This positions our province as a driver of sustainable development. Our Marula belt in Mopani, alongside 70% of Kruger National Park within Limpopo, will showcase our natural beauty and rich heritage to the world. Mr. President, we welcome your decisive focus on water security. For years, our communities have struggled with water shortages. We appreciate your recognition that many rural municipalities lack the financial and technical capacity to ensure sustainable water supply. We have already, as a province, engaged the Department of Water and Sanitation to find practical solutions, particularly in Polokwane municipality, where water and infrastructure challenges persist. We have established what we call our premiers